This is Valerie.
And this is Jacinta.
And you're listening to Catholics, a Catholic podcast by millennials for millennials.
Thanks for tuning in. Hey guys, welcome back to the podcast. It's Jacinta here, and as always, Valerie is with me in the house. And this week we have an amazing topic for you. We're going to be talking about none other than the Blessed Mother, so pray for us as we try and talk about her, because she's amazing. But we're just going to be talking about who she is and how she has impacted our lives uniquely and individually, because she is an amazing woman. So thank you for tuning in. We've got good stuff coming up on the podcast. We've got more listens, so thank you for that. And I've been seeing that there are more listeners across the United States, so that's pretty awesome. And I finally saw that my home state of Oklahoma has some listens, because I had some beef about that before, where I was like, oh my gosh, nobody from my home state is listening.
I didn't realize that.
I did.
I didn't realize that.
Where are you Oklahomies at?
Well,
yeah.
But now they are.
They're back. Or they're there.
They've joined.
They joined the party. Oklahoma's a little bit slow on things.
Slow to the party, middle of the country.
Yeah. What are you going to do? I can't really blame them. They're slow to hear about things. People in the South just move slow. So, as Jim Gaffigan once said. He said
really?
That, yeah, he was like, people in the South, they just move slow. He was like, they're not mentally slow. That's not what I mean. They move slow. I'm like, thank you for clarifying that. Otherwise, you were going to offend like a whole group of people. He was like, I think it's the biscuits and gravy, though. Which I find pretty accurate.
Yeah, true.
It is true. Yeah. I was in Arkansas this past weekend at a camp giving a talk for my job, and they had biscuits and gravy at this camp, and I was like, it was like heaven.
Oh, yeah.
So they really pile on, like, the starch and all of that in the South, so.
Yes. All good things.
There was no keto to be had in Arkansas.
Nah, no way.
Yeah, but, so yeah, we're just gonna dive right in. It's been an interesting day for both of us, so we're just gonna go into it.
Sounds good.
Yeah. So with the Blessed Mother, she's the new Eve. We know that when Eve was in the garden, she basically messed it up for everybody as she grasped for the fruit
True.
on the tree of knowledge of good and evil. You can find that in Genesis. And Mary is the exact opposite of Eve,
yes.
as she represents how we should be. With her arms are open and open to receiving. Open to receiving the will of God and open to receiving the will of God for all of us. So she's really an amazing woman, and she is known for crushing Satan's head in Revelation. So
right.
She's pretty amazing.
And can I go back to what you said there a second?
Mm-hmm.
Not trying to cut you off. I'm just letting Jacinta take the hold on this one. I know her knowledge is greater on this than mine, and she has some more experience with the Blessed Mother. But I had one thought you made me think of when you said she's so open to receiving. And I've just so recently heard multiple people say something I never heard before, and now I've heard it in multiple places. You know how that happens? You never hear something said, and you're like, that's a new thought, and then you hear multiple people say it, like,
all the
within
time.
a couple days.
Yeah.
And you're like, how had never heard this before? Now I've heard it in, like, 3 different contexts, you know?
Yeah.
So I was listening to a podcast, and they talked about how women are made to receive. We are meant to receive the child. We're meant to carry the child and receive that child in our womb, and then in our arms, and we're just meant to receive, you know, in so many different ways.
Sure.
We're made for that.
We're hardwired
mentally,
for it.
physically, like every aspect of it is made to receive. So when you were saying Mary is made to receive, I think that's just a great example of her femininity and how of our femininity. You get it.
Yeah.
Our feminineness as well.
Yeah, because Eve grasped.
True.
You know, she bought into the lie that Satan told her, that if you eat from the tree of knowledge of good and evil, your eyes will be open and you will become like God.
Right.
And so there's that seed of doubt planted in Eve, like, oh,
like
why would God be holding out on me?
Right, like, A, I'm not good enough because I could be better, and B, I want to be better, like this pride, right?
Yeah. So I want my eyes to be open. I want to see what I'm not able to see now.
Right.
And that's not what we're made for.
Right.
So we're made to trust God, and Mary shows us that.
Yeah.
So just in my life, the Blessed Mother is amazing. My parents had us, I'm one of 5, they had us consecrated to the Blessed Mother when we were babies, so I really do think that was powerful in my life. And I don't know if I've ever told you my conversion story.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, okay, so last night as I was going to bed, I have some of my most, biggest realizations before I'm going to bed. So, I realized that coming up this year will be the 10-year, not this year, but 2020 will be the 10-year anniversary of my reversion back to the Catholic faith. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's
cool.
crazy.
That's
yeah.
Cool.
So it's insane. And all of that started because of the Blessed Mother.
Oh, wow.
So I was in college 10 years ago, which that makes me feel really old.
That's funny.
Isn't that insane?
I know. I was in college. I had just graduated 2 years ago.
Wow. See the age gap, people.
Yeah, anyway, sorry.
Yeah, but I feel like
you would never know.
You would never know.
That's
because I'm so young at heart and you're so mature. It works.
She meant to say I'm like a grandma.
Yeah, okay. I was just saying it nicely.
So you 10 years ago you were in college and Mary kind of jump-started your conversion.
Yeah.
Your reversion.
Yeah, so I was at the Art Institute of Portland in Oregon studying fashion marketing.
I literally have never heard any of this about you. I'm sorry. Carry on.
Yeah, isn't this crazy?
It is.
I'm excited. It was the first time I had moved away from home, so I was scared because I was not in.
Was this when you were 18?
I was 21.
Okay.
So I had actually worked a few years after high school, and then I went to college later. So I was 21.
Okay.
But I was terrified because I was like, oh my gosh, I'm far away from my family.
Way far from Oklahoma.
Way far, yeah. And so my grandma had given me this scriptural rosary booklet, and I brought it with me to college, and I would pray the rosary every day, and it would be 45 minutes.
Wow. Okay, so can I ask a question then?
Yeah.
Were you active in your faith up until that point?
No.
So you just started praying the rosary just because, your grandma gave you the book and you thought it might
help?
Or, I don't know, I'm just how did praying...
Yes.
I don't know, because I feel like people who aren't strong in their faith aren't turning to the rosary. So explain that a little bit.
Those are great questions. Yeah, so I had been living this lifestyle that started in high school of a fade away from my Catholic faith and just living, the partying lifestyle and all of that.
Sure.
I wasn't living my faith out. I was living according to the culture.
Yep.
And buying into the lies of the culture and all of that stuff. So I was not even living closely to my faith, but I had this desire for something more. And I think the rosary helped jumpstart that.
Okay. Interesting that you... I don't know, the whole rosary thing is interesting.
Yeah, I think
because that's not something someone normally would pick up and use as a tool.
Because it's so radical.
Yeah. It's so on the conservative side, I would say, if you will. And I don't mean that negatively.
No, I know.
The conservative Catholics are
all about.
I'm not
rosary.
saying that's a bad thing.
No,
I don't
know.
mean that. It's just something
I'm not offended. Yeah.
It's not someone who's new to the faith typically jumps right to.
Right.
You know?
No, totally. So
that's cool.
No, I think that what it was is that I was so sick of the lifestyle that I was leading that was something that I was okay, maybe if I do this.
Yeah.
It was a hopeful thing.
Okay, yeah.
Maybe this will
can see that.
Change something.
Sure.
And so fall semester I continued my partying lifestyle and all of that stuff, and I prayed the rosary that semester. Nothing really happened. And then in January, I started to feel restless, and I started to have these thoughts of wanting to do God's will. And I was like,
and you're like, what is that even?
Yeah. Yeah. I was like, where is this coming from? Sure. Yeah. And so I would talk to this girl, Val, that's across the hall from me in the dorms, who I'm still friends with today, and she was a known Christian, and we would have these deep conversations, and she said that I always talked to her about how I was not happy and would just dump everything on her, about my
probably just needed to,
about my relationships and everything. Yeah,
I can see that.
Yeah, so she was good for that. God strategically placed her there across the dorm rooms from me. And I was dating this guy who was a good-looking Italian man. Okay, fair. I always have to add that. He was really good-looking. Okay. But I knew that he wasn't helping me become a better person. And I knew that I needed to break up with him in order to surrender my life to God and in order to live out my Catholic faith. And so I did that. But it wasn't a one and done. It was a struggle for me to really change.
Oh, yeah.
And hand my life over. And it was a slow process.
Absolutely.
But Mary definitely jump-started that. And I could see just, like, the graces there from praying the rosary every single day.
Right.
Yeah. St. Louis de Montfort has a quote that says, whenever somebody prays the rosary, that they will either give up their life of mortal sin or they'll give up the rosary. And so I could definitely see that. Like, you'll either continue on and doing what you're doing, like, as far as, like, going along with the world or things that aren't, like, in line with church teaching, or you will stop. Yeah. So anyways, Mary praying the rosary has radically changed my life, and that was 10 years ago. And I attribute that conversion to her. Like, wow. Yeah.
Like, she just knew that you were seeking that help.
Yeah.
And it just took you, like, asking her through the rosary.
Yeah.
Even if it was subconsciously, if even if it wasn't super directive.
Totally.
But she could tell that you were hopeful for some change.
Exactly.
She was guiding you along in that.
Yeah, and cool. The Lord was pursuing me through all of that. And he's like, you think these things are going to make you happy, but they're not. Right. And so, ultimately, that led me to true peace, true happiness, true fulfillment. And yeah, Mary's amazing. So I highly recommend praying the rosary if you don't. Maybe pray one decade a day.
Right.
And
start
that's a
great way
with that. So yeah, I would highly recommend that. So, but it wasn't like, again, it wasn't like a one and done thing. It was like a slow conversion process. It took me like half a year to like totally convert, like, and just give everything over.
Sure.
And yeah. So it was a pretty radical transformation too. Like, even thinking about it, it feels like it was like another life.
I'm sure
I'm
it
like
does.
a completely different person from what I used to be. Not like totally, like I still had my personality and everything,
right.
but the things that I was interested in.
Sure.
Yeah.
The things you were doing, your day-to-day life was just so different.
Yeah. So, and Mary is amazing for changing all of that. So.
Wow. What does your, like, relationship with Mary on a day-to-day basis look like now?
Well,
that's just a random question.
Yeah, I try to pray the rosary every day when I do my daily holy hour. Like, that's what that's all about. But I do live out the consecration. I don't know if you've heard of, like, the total consecration, 33 days to morning glory.
I have, and I've done it, like, maybe a time and a half.
Yeah.
But I don't know, Mary, honestly, something not that I haven't seen her beauty, but because I do.
Right.
I don't know, but the consecration, I guess I wasn't, like, I don't want to say I didn't buy into it. That sounds horrible. But, like, I don't know. I'm just not on the same level as some people are. Like, I guess it's harder for me. I just don't feel that connection with her right now.
Right. I see what you're saying.
So, like, I see her beauty, and I love the analogy of her as the new Eve because she is. Mm-hmm. And I so admire her receptivity. But for some reason, like, and maybe I just need to do the consecration again, but I just didn't feel like, I don't know. I don't know. It's different for everyone, but...
Yeah, totally. Like, I used to do it every year, but then somehow I stopped, so it fizzled out whenever I was in grad school, actually, because I just got way too busy.
Sure. Yeah.
But I feel like those graces are still there from doing the 33 Days to Morning Glory and the St. Louis de Montfort one, which that one is intense.
Yeah, I would...
So, like, pick your flavor of either one. The 33 Days to Morning Glory is more, like, accessible.
It was very easy to understand, and I'm sure during those days, like, when it was fresh on my mind, because, again, it's probably been, what has it been, 6 years since I probably did it.
Oh, yeah.
That I'm sure it was more impactful then, because I remembered, like, things that stuck out to me from that. But now I'm 6 years out, and I haven't done it again, so now I'm kind of, like, I need reminded of, I need reminded of some of the things, because I do remember going, wow, that's a really good way to put it, or wow, I hadn't known that, or, like...
Sure.
There's a lot of information in there. So I think it would help me to do it again.
Right.
Because I know there was, there's grace there and there's great things there. And it's just been so long that I honestly don't even, remember much from it. So,
I
would recommend doing it again. Which is why they recommend, like, reconsecrating and reminding you of why Mary's so important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I think that consecration is powerful because she definitely helps you with your prayer life, bring you closer to Jesus, and bring you, like,
that's
where
all
you
she
need
wants
to be.
Do.
Yeah, ultimately she brings you, like, where you need to be. Like, it's the shortest, fastest, quickest way to be in the will of God. Mm-hmm. So that's really cool. So I've always felt that with her. Like, I've always felt like God has, like, put me where I need to be at all times. And then as far as, like, my relationship with her, I wouldn't say that I'm totally conscious of it all the time.
Sure. Yeah.
So, like, I'll go and pray my rosary, but it's very distracted.
Sure.
And I'm just, like, my mind
but again,
is wondering.
subconsciously you know that that's important to you, and that's an important part of your faith. Like, I
Sure.
personally have really struggled with the rosary.
Yeah. I mean, I still struggle with it because I'm so ADD.
Right. And I think what I like about you saying that is that you know that Mary is so important to you, and you know that the rosary is so important to you, and you know it's okay to be distracted.
Mm-hmm.
I just get distracted and I'm like, oh, this isn't for me.
Yeah.
Rather than just being like, it's okay, I'll just power through it. Like, it's okay, it's still helping. I just get frustrated and go, okay, this isn't actually, I might as well just not pray it because I'm not praying it well. Which isn't the case at all. That's totally wrong. Like, that's just a flaw in my thinking of it.
Sure.
Does that make sense, though?
No,
you know
it
what I'm
totally
saying?
does.
So
but
that's...
go ahead.
No, that's just the struggle I've had with it, I think, is that I beat myself up too much over it.
Mm-hmm.
Rather than going, this is okay. It's just, its own kind of spiritual warfare in a way, if you will.
No, it sounds like it. Yeah.
So...
And there's a different flavor for everybody. Like, I know some people, like, grow in their spirituality, and then they grow out of praying the rosary every day, and they go to something else, like Byzantine spirituality. You know what I mean?
There is so
our
much.
life is, like, always going to be transformed to do something else. Like, I used to really like the Latin Mass, but now I'm not so much a fan of it. I mean, I think it's beautiful, but I wouldn't choose to go right now. So, like, our spirituality always changes. And then I learned about the charismatic movement when I lived in Pennsylvania, and I really got into that and praise and worship. So, like, our spiritual lives are always transforming and changing.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I don't want people to think that when they're listening, they have to pray the rosary every day. I'm not saying that.
It's not for everybody.
Yeah. But definitely have a devotion to Mary. Pray a decade a day if you can. Pray in the car. Actually, it's kind of dangerous. I've tried to pray in the car, like the rosary. It is kind of dangerous.
Because you can't truly focus on what you're...
Yeah.
It is hard. I've done the same thing, and you just go, okay, I'm not really... Because for me, the rosary is great when you can really, like, focus on the mysteries.
Mm-hmm.
Or focus
like
on the
be
words.
In that meditative
either one.
State.
Yeah, either one.
Yeah.
Either you're choosing to focus on the words or choosing to focus on the mysteries, and you can't really fully do that in the car. But
yeah, and what's cool about it is you're really focusing on scripture, because all of those scenes or all of those decades,
exactly, you're focusing on Jesus' life,
I mean, his
scriptural life, what we know from scriptures to be his life.
Right, exactly. So like, there's power in that. So
absolutely.
It's just hard to get into that meditative state sometimes with distraction.
With distraction, for sure. But Mary's definitely, like, just her holiness, just like we would look to the other saints, for examples of holiness. But Mary is just the perfect example, obviously, of holiness, and her receptiveness. I think you put it so well. I really like that.
I do too. Yeah.
I don't know. I like it phrased that way. Like, I knew she was receptive in her yes, but I like connecting that to her femininity. I should just stop saying this word, guys. But it's the only word.
The struggle.
It's the only word I can think of, like, to try to say what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
It just, I don't know. I don't know. Yeah. You know what I'm trying to say.
I do. And I like that you pointed out about the receptivity, because it's so simple. But I think I struggle with that, like receiving, because I have been noticing that I'm a little bit, like, we talk about the temperaments. I'm sanguine choleric.
Right.
Sometimes, like, I'm such a doer. We both are. We're both doers. So, like, I feel like it's
receiving makes it harder because you just want to do.
Yeah. So that's something to work on, and just be like, okay, Lord, like, this is all you. I'm just going to let you do your thing, and I'm just going to sit back. Right. Yeah, it's hard for us to not make things happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I
love that you mentioned that.
Mary trusted in that, yes, that God was going to take care of it, and,
even if they were in, like, an inn, even if she had the Son of God in, like, a cave, some random place with Joseph.
There was just so many things, right?
So many things.
She's so young, which they were younger to be married in those days anyway, but she was so young, and people knew she was unwed. Mm-hmm. So there was that stigma still, I'm sure, even back then, probably worse back then.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine.
People, that would be so frowned upon. And I think it's so interesting because we hear the story of Elizabeth and her going to visit her cousin. Mm-hmm. And someone pointed out to me, they're like, we think she's just going to see her cousin, like, to tell her the good news. And I'm sure she was excited about it. But she was also going to Elizabeth because, like, she probably needed to be away for a little bit. Yeah. From the people that were, like, didn't understand.
Right.
You know, what was actually happening, and the people that were kind of shunning her and giving her trouble, if you will.
Totally.
So, but she knew Elizabeth would understand. And she went to go visit Elizabeth to kind of get away and, like, to really probably recharge and get ready for the birth of Jesus and to reflect. Because you always hear of Mary
pondering
all these things in her heart, which I love that. So I'm sure she had to go and ponder what Jesus' life was going to be like, and she knew Elizabeth would understand. And she knew Elizabeth was also pregnant, too. So there's so many things there that she could do.
Yeah.
And then just the beauty of the infant, you know, leaping in Elizabeth's womb, knowing that Jesus was there. Like, just so many things.
Yeah. And I love what you said about, like, her receiving. It's like she received, and then she couldn't help but share what she received with Elizabeth.
Right.
She's like, I'm going to tell you everything. Right. You know?
Which is great. That's what we're called to do with the gospel. We're called to receive and then to share.
Yes.
And Mary's a perfect
prime example
of that.
Yeah.
In so many ways.
In more ways than one.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. Awesome. Well, I think this is all the time we have today, but it's been a good talk.
Little thoughts on Mary and your conversion story.
Yeah, so. Maybe I'll go deeper another day, but I don't know.
Who knows?
Maybe not. We'll see. But Mary is amazing, so if you do not have her in your life, you should. And I had a priest once tell me that whenever you pray the Rosary, watch out, because Mary's going to change things.
Wow.
So, yeah.
That's cool. I like that.
Yeah. So, thank you guys for listening. Shout out to our 100th Instagram follower. Do you remember who that was?
No,
I think he was a Benedictine student. I think
it was a BC student.
Yeah, so shout out to Benedictine College. Keep on educating those people. Shout out to Father Michael O'Laughlin, who was my spiritual director in Denver. He has lived in Denver for 14 years, and he's now been reassigned to LA. I'm not there to grieve over it, but I can only imagine. I wish I was there, because it's just not going to be the same there without him. So I wanted to give him a shout out. God bless you. We love you. And we'll be praying for you.
Thanks for listening, guys.
All right. See you on the next episode. Bye.
Bye.